Good morning, guys. Today we're going to talk about using mental strategies to add and subtract decimals. So by now you should be able to use our standard algorithm to add and subtract decimals. That's where we're making sure that our place values are lined up and our decimals are lined up. But it's important for you to be able to recognize when you have a whole, or when it can be done just using your head, not necessarily needing a pen and paper because we don't always have pencil and paper or a calculator with us. So our problem of the day, mentally, meaning do not use paper and pencil or a calculator, find the sum of 298 plus 17. I'll give you a minute. Okay, so let's talk about how we can solve this. We have two numbers here. We have 298 and I have 17. Now, I could break down 298 into smaller numbers to be able to work with, but I recognize that 298 is very close to another whole number. The next whole number would be 300. Now, our 17 is a much smaller number, and I know I can break that down into smaller sections. I know I need two more to go from 298 to 300. So if I change 17 to being 2 plus 15, there's my 2 that I need. So I can take my 298 in my head, add that 2, and get 300. But I still have my leftover 15. So what am I going to do with that? I'm going to add it to the 300, which makes our total 315. Do you see how I broke those down into steps, and being able to recognize my next benchmark or my next whole number helps me figure out how to move on to add and how to subtract without using a pen and paper. So let's take a look at this. I have 7/10 plus 6/10, and I want to find out what the total is. Instead of running to go get a paper and pencil or take my phone out and get my calculator out, I sit here and I think about it. I say, well, 7/10 almost looks like one whole. I know that I need 3/10 to go with the 7/10 to make it one whole, because I know that there are 10/10 in one whole. So what can I do? I can take 3/10 away from our 6/10, move them over with our 7/10, and now I have one whole. But I also know now that I have 3/10 left over plus one whole, which means our answer is 1 3/10. My thought process through this whole thing, ready? I start at 0.7. I know my next benchmark is going to be what? One whole. And I know that I need 3/10 to be able to go from 7/10 to one whole. Now I know I took 3/10 away from our 6/10, and that leaves 3/10 left over, which gives me my answer of 1 3/10. So let's take a look and see if we can do this mentally with this problem. 2/3 plus 8/10. This is another example of a problem where we can think and add mentally. Rather than build it, let's discuss what the model would look like. What will we need for the first addend? Well, I would need 2 wholes and 3/10. The benchmark we would want to think about is what? 3 wholes, because I'm seeing that I'm adding, and I'm also seeing that I'm past 2. So the next one up would be 3. So how many more tenths do I need to get from 2 3/10 to 3 wholes? Remember, 10 tenths make 1 whole, and we have 3 of them in our number. I'm sorry, we have 7 of them in our number because we need 7 tenths. So we can take 7 tenths from our second addend to see that so that we can get to 3 wholes. And what do we still have to add to our second addend? We would still have 1 more tenth. So we have our 3 wholes and then 1 more tenth. So let's look at how this would look on a number line. So I start off on my 2/3. I would jump. This is my 7 tenths that I'm taking from here to get to 3. But I still have 1 tenth left over to bring me to 3 1/10. But what happens if I need to subtract? Well, you can still do that mentally too. If I have 2 wholes and I want to subtract 3 tenths, what is that going to look like? We know we have our 2 wholes. 2 wholes is that benchmark number that we can work with. But now, if we're taking away 3 tenths, we would be taking them away from one of our wholes. I know that 1 whole has 10 tenths. So I can think of it as 2 wholes or 1 whole and 10 tenths, like this. Okay? So I can think about taking those 3 tenths now from my 10 tenths. What happens? If I take those away, what are we left with? We have our 1 whole, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 7 tenths. So 2 minus 3 tenths is 1 7 tenths. The same thing happens here. I started out at 2 wholes, right? And I subtracted the 3 tenths, which is going to give me 1 7 tenths. Okay? So I hope this helps you realize that you don't always need a pen and paper or a calculator to figure out these problems. Knowing your benchmarks and what the next number closest to what you're looking for is really going to help you. I hope you guys have a great day. I'll talk to you later. Bye.